She's the story that never ends. Hi everyone, I'm Jacob, I'm the Cowhat Librarian, and I'm here tonight to talk about the final book in his Tailspinner series, Scott Reintgen's Breaking Badlands. When last we met our hero, Indira's story, she'd finished the first 2 books in this series. She was an acknowledged hero of fable for saving the city from various existential threats, and she was off to go appear in another book. Well, this picks up sometime after her second book has been completed. The story house has been built. She's currently torn between 2 people, Phoenix and Everest, who are both vying for her affection. Well, as the story goes, Indira is kidnapped by some anti-heroes. They want her to travel to Fester and overthrow the leader of the antagonist academy. The problem is that the person who has taken over the antagonist academy is changing the rules. Instead of producing antagonists that are suitable for all different sorts of books, he is obsessed with the idea of just creating final boss style antagonists. No more pawns, no more masterminds, no more crooked villains, just final bosses. And this has the potential to throw the entire world out of balance. With no variation in the types of antagonists, how many stories are there for the protagonists to have? So, Indira heads on this mission where she will infiltrate Antagonist Academy and steal a powerful scepter. And Phoenix and Everest go with her, and they all travel in disguise. Indira's story becomes Indigo, a kind of wild child with her disguised hammer who has a lousy attitude, and she gets assigned to the Crooked faction in Antagonist Academy and quickly becomes its leader. Well, that's not such a good thing because the leaders of that faction tend to be betrayed and overthrown fairly quickly. So she has to manage her position among the people in the Crooked faction while trying to find this scepter and retrieving it. In the background, Peeve Meadows, her first antagonist, the one who tried to steal Indira's spot going to Fable, is in the background with her own plan for dealing with things. It was pretty good. It finished the series in a satisfying way. It wrapped up the trilogy, and it did leave enough of a door open for Reintgen to return to this series if he chose to sometime in the future. Indira's story is still a pretty good character, a fairly straight arrow, but having her attend Antagonist Academy and having to infiltrate it was fantastic. She got to explore a whole nother side to her personality, got to understand why villainy could be appealing to some antagonists and why they might revel in it, and it was a fun take on the character. It was great. And, you know, if you've read the first 2 books, definitely pick up this 3rd one and finish it up. I don't think you'll be disappointed. There's a bigger question, though. If you haven't read the first 2 books, should you pick up the series? Well, this whole series falls into a category of books that seems to be more prevalent lately, where the author seems, in my opinion, to be appealing more to library staff members than to readers. With all the fourth wall breaking comments and all the references to pages and marks and brainstorms being physical entities in this land, and how characters are chosen for stories and they build a story house and they learn how to be protagonists. It's fun stuff, but it really seems geared towards library staff members and getting them on board to recommend it, rather than things that will just appeal to readers, to be honest. Still, I think there's enough there, as long as you aren't the sort of person who dislikes meta content type stuff or meta narratives. I think there's some good stuff here. Now, with that said, there are spoilers ahead because I have to talk about the deal breakers. Okay, first up, the love triangle. It was fine. It felt very, very, very formulaic to me. And Everest's betrayal of Indira later on didn't come as a complete surprise. I don't think it will surprise too many readers, to be honest. So that was a little disappointing. The idea that this whole thing was a trap to trap Indira, that ended up being pretty well done. But the idea that Peeve Meadows would be instrumental in changing things, that really cut across the grain for me. She was sneaky enough and driven enough to try to steal Indira's spot in going to Fable in the first place. And then she's willing to just help out at the end. It felt a little bit out of left field. I understand why it happened that way. And to be fair, Reintgen did give her an okay reason for doing it. It seemed to come out a little bit out of nowhere for me. The idea at the end that there would be a single school and that all the protagonists and antagonists would go there and that Indira would be a teacher, and it was trying a little too hard to wrap it up and put a bow on it, in my opinion. It felt as if the ending of Harry Potter had involved all of the main characters ending up back at Hogwarts being teachers. And I mean, that's fine. I don't think it was necessary for the conclusion of this book. The part where they're debating names for this new school and they throw off fictional stuff as being ridiculous. Starfleet Academy, too sci-fi. Hogwarts, is that a disease? That was pretty funny, but again, it requires a reader who's willing to put up with the fourth wall breaking stuff. That's not everyone's taste. I thought it was okay, but your mileage may vary. And this is a real nitpick at the end. The fourth wall breaking got carried away at the very, very end. There's a point near the end where the narrator notes that Indira and Phoenix are getting closer together, but it's time for them to continue on their way and he'll continue on his and give them some privacy. Lexi, an editor who's Indira's friend who's introduced in a previous book, cuts in an all capital section saying, "No, I'm changing this. We've been waiting 3 books for this kiss." And again, your reaction to it will depend on your tolerance of fourth wall breaking stuff. My last nitpick, at the very end, there's a scene where Deus Ex Machina, who'd been helping Indira since she met him in the first book, has caused there to be a gap in a bookstore shelf. And there's a woman looking through the shelves, and there's a gap there, and it just happens to be where her name would be if she had a book there and it was filed properly. And that inspires her to write a book. Seriously? Who thinks that way, Mr. Reintgen? Come on. I've had a number of authors come to my library and speak about where they get their ideas from, and not a single one ever said, "Gee, there was this gap on the bookshelves at the bookstore and I thought my book would fit there." Come on. I've got a couple ideas for stories that I've written copious notes and a few chapters for, and they certainly didn't come from seeing a gap on the shelves. The person who wrote Walter the Farting Dog saw a dog who was farting and gave him a funny name and wrote a story about it. They certainly did not see a gap on the shelves and think, "I should fill that with a story about a farting dog." No, that's not how it works. I'm sorry. At any rate, like I said, if you're okay with fourth wall stuff, if you're okay with something that does lean heavily into attracting librarians and library staff members to read it and to talk it up, then yeah, go read the Tailspinner series. It's fun. If you really, really don't like fourth wall breaking stuff, you may have to look elsewhere. With that, thank you for listening to me talk about this book. And while I'm on the subject of libraries in general, if you like and support your local public library, please take just a minute and tell the powers that be exactly that. Tell your mayor, tell your council member that you support public libraries. We're at a time where some public libraries are having trouble finding adequate and sustainable funding for the materials, programs, and services that you rely on. and a few good words in the right ears can make a world of difference. And if by some chance you work at a library, don't forget, watching my videos counts as professional development time. So by all means, please like, please subscribe, and please check back to see what else I have to talk about from the Cowhat Library. Thank you. Bye now.